I've been looking forward to this adventure for quite some time. Hello one and all, welcome to Seen Through Glass. Welcome to a very hot Argentina. I'm about to jump onto a connecting flight and head further south down to Patagonia to check out Porsche's synthetic fuel. I'll explain later why I did the Porsche in inverted commas, but last year I put carbon neutral synthetic fuel in my Ferrari 360 and it uncanned this kind of new obsession that I have with green carbon neutral fuel. So I cannot wait to find out what Porsche are doing in this space, but on a personal level, I'm just excited to be in this part of the world. So yeah, let's go. Let's head further south to Patagonia. Well, welcome to the bottom of the world. This is Punta Arenas, one of the southernest most cities in Chile and one of the southernest most ports in the world. This is often where people set off for Antarctica. So yeah, it's a little bit colder than Buenos Aires, but I'm quite relieved about that because you probably noticed in the intro, I was sweating. Also, you may have noticed as we stepped off the very fancy private jet that we took from Buenos Aires to here, it's quite windy. But that's a good thing for making synthetic fuels. More on that very soon because yes, this is the starting point for our epic adventure. Now it's important to understand, as I've alluded to, that Porsche are not actually making their own synthetic fuel. They are instead 12% shareholders in a company called HIF, Highly Innovative Fuels, who plan to create an e-fuel for the global automotive market. Porsche are just hoping to help HIF develop that fuel, market it, and then I guess benefit from not only its use, but any future sales. Apparently you will never see a Porsche fuel station or be able to buy e-fuel at your local Porsche centre. It's also important to say that this is very much the start of the Porsche and HIF foray into synthetic fuels. At the moment, there is this small pilot plant located just outside Punta Arenas. It's going to be able to produce about 130,000 litres of e-fuel, all of which will go to Porsche, who, after some testing, plan to use it in the Super Cup and at Porsche Experience Centres. So long story short, whilst this is an incredibly exciting development in the world of carbon neutral fuels, at this point, it's still a little bit of an experiment, or at least it's in its infant stage. HIF have huge rollout plans for e-fuel mega factories. But I imagine the use of synthetic fuels globally will also need to ramp up massively before those plans can become a reality. Now, I mentioned the hectic winds in this part of the world. It's the reason why HIF have created their pilot plant here. HIF create their e-fuel by using renewable energy captured by a wind turbine, water, and captured CO2, which they currently get from a local beer factory. The wind turbine produces the green energy required to split the water atoms into hydrogen and oxygen. They then take that hydrogen and mix it with the captured carbon to produce an e-methane. Now, e-methane does have its uses, but for our case study, we're more interested in e-gasoline. The process of turning e-methane into e-gasoline seems to be quite complex and also secretive. But eventually, you are left with a 93-octane e-gasoline, which Porsche say should be good for all their existing and historic combustion engines. If you want to increase the octane, you can introduce various additives. However, HIF partner with ExxonMobil to do this, and their additives aren't entirely carbon neutral, which would slightly defeat the point. So, no fossil fuels are used in the creation process, and there are no harmful emissions from the factory, hence making the end result carbon neutral. Put it in your car, and whilst carbon is still coming out the exhaust, it's not adding to the atmosphere, it's just recycling what was already there. After our tour and detailed briefing of the pilot site, we fueled up the cars available with some of this brand new e-fuel and hit the road, heading deeper into Patagonia. Well, I promise we are still in Chile. We've come about an hour down the road from the HIF plant. Our exploration of Patagonia has begun. We're on our way to our hotel where we're going to be based for the next couple of nights. We've stopped off here at this very old farm for a quick coffee break. And genuinely, it feels like we could be in Maryland, America. It's not what I pictured for Chile. I don't know what I was expecting, but not this. It's been super flat so far. It's kind of been reminiscent of parts of Scotland, maybe even parts of Australia. Huge, vast expanses. I was kind of expecting snow-tipped mountains, but no. And then we've come to these villages and it's been sort of super, is it cookie cutter? It's very like cute buildings and stuff. And oh, there's the wind. Still windy. But anyway, yeah, quick stop here. It's actually pretty late. It's 7:15, so we've got to crack on. We're going to be jumping back into the Panamera, which has now been, yes, filled with that synthetic fuel. Continue our journey into and towards Torres del Paine, which is the big Patagonian National Park. Right, coffee consumed. Actually, that's a lie. I didn't have a coffee because it's so late in the day. I thought it would be inappropriate, even though, as you all know, I'm coffee obsessed. So we're going to hit the road once again, and actually a very cool road. I hadn't even mentioned the fact that we're on Ruta del Fin del Mundo. I don't think I've got that quite right, but essentially it's the route to the end of the world. I mentioned kind of at the start that we are at the bottom of the world down here. Can't go much further south than we are right now. So yeah, the names of places are all pretty dramatic. And I just learned something really cool about, well, not just this old farm, but a lot of the properties around here. Essentially during the Great Depression, the Chilean government started an incentive, well, for the whole world to basically come here. And they said, look, we will give you land for free and we will give you the materials to build properties for free. And as long as you stay, you never have to pay us, because they just wanted somebody to come and populate this part of the country. And I guess it worked, but it's meant that you've got all these kind of properties that don't necessarily look like they're Chilean. This was built by a Scottish family and it's got that real vibe to it. The minute I stepped inside I went, oh, it smells like a Scottish or Welsh hotel. It was really weird. I was expecting someone to come out and go, you want some Welsh cakes? But anyway, it's all part of the adventure and all part of the exploration of this area, and I'm actually really enjoying the fact it's nothing like I expected. Anyway, we've got quite a bumpy road to navigate back to the Del Fin del Mundo road, so as long as I don't hit any big rocks, our journey will continue. Look at this. Oh, now these are the kind of views I was expecting from Patagonia. So this is the Singular Hotel. It's just on the edge of the Torres del Paine National Park, which is like the main tourist destination for people wanting to visit Patagonia. It's where we're going to be exploring in the Panameras tomorrow. I actually can't wait. Whilst I've been so pleasantly surprised and actually really intrigued by what we've seen of Chile so far, the part that I'm most excited about checking out is tomorrow. Because, you know, I've wanted to visit Patagonia for at least 3 to 5 years, if not longer. And in my mind, Patagonia is Torres del Paine. Big, dramatic landscape. And apparently the route we're going to be taking is insane. So I can't wait. But I need to hit the sack because, well, I think I've been traveling for 24 hours now. Obviously, this video started with me in Buenos Aires. I had to get there from the UK, which was, yeah, lots of flying. So I won't bore you with the details. So after a welcome barbecue, which sounds quite nice, I'm going to pass out and then continue the journey tomorrow when I'm going to get more into the synthetic fuel story, but also more into the Porsche and Panamera story, because there's a particular reason why we're in those cars in this part of the world. Anyway, see you in the morning. I'm just quickly going to interrupt things to remind you about one of my ongoing partners here on the channel, NordVPN. With the amount that I'm traveling and the amount that I'm uploading online to this YouTube channel, my Instagram, my TikTok, etc., you can imagine I'm endlessly logging on to random public Wi-Fi networks in hotels, restaurants, cafes, airports, etc. When I do that, I never know who might be looking at or even trying to steal my information. That's why I always have a VPN active, and I've been using NordVPN for like 6 or 7 years. If you don't know, a VPN is a virtual physical private network, and it ensures your safety and your security when you go online. Essentially, it puts up a virtual wall between you and those dodgy people out there trying to look at all your information. Over and above that, NordVPN also allows you to enjoy sports and content that maybe you don't usually get access to in your country. That benefits me when it comes to Formula One. All of my subscriptions are based in the UK, which means that when I'm traveling, usually I can't access them. But with NordVPN, I just set my location to the UK and I can get all the F1 content that I need. They're offering you 4 months free if you sign up for 2 years using my link, nordvpn.com/STG, and there's no risk because they have a money-back guarantee. I highly suggest that you have a VPN active whenever you go online, and as I say, in my mind, NordVPN are the best in the business, so go and check them out. Huge thanks to them for continuing to support the channel. For now, let's get back to the adventure. Well, good morning. Day 2 in Patagonia. It's quite fun saying that. Now, interestingly, these cars have been refueled overnight, but not with the E or synthetic fuel. Now, this is a whole sort of key message from Porsche, but it's something that I know about synthetic fuels anyway. The real benefit is that you can mix them with traditional fuels. So you don't have to only use E or synthetic fuel once you start. So yeah, it would have been filled up with, I don't know if they have V-Power around here, but something fairly normal. There's no risk, no negative to mixing the two, which is fantastic, and it makes it even easier to integrate an E or a synthetic fuel into the current global sort of fuel setup so easily, which is really ace. So yeah, got a full tank. Currently we're sitting in, I think we're in a 4S hybrid. There's so many variations of Panamera on this trip, and driven quite a few now, but this is the 4S which we're going to be taking into the big national park. In the briefing we just had now, whilst I was sipping my coffee, they said 70% of today is going to be on gravel roads. I think all of us went, wow, we're here in 911 Dakars. Because, yeah, gravel roads in Patagonia, and oh, the car's already on. Classic. That's the problem with hybrids and anything electric, you never actually know when they're turned on. So there we go, into drive. Let's roll out, and yes, go and explore the wilderness ahead. I've worked out there's really only one way to describe Patagonia. Brutal. It's such a harsh environment. Reminder, this is summer. Just I constantly feel like we're going to get blown away or disappear into a crevasse in the road or end up in a monsoon. It's kind of amazing. It's like this super rugged, wild experience that I don't think you can really get in many other places. We've just stopped at a quick coffee stop. It's the Explorer Hotel. It's actually one of the most expensive hotels in the area and the only one inside the national park. And sitting here within the restaurant, you usually have amazing views out over the mountains front. Actually, you can kind of see them, but because of the heavy winds and big rain, a lot of them are covered. But it doesn't really matter. It kind of adds to the whole experience. It just feels like Lord of the Rings-esque. You can just hear the wind rushing around, the rain's lashing on the windows. I kind of love it. It's so extreme, but I also do wish it was sunny so we could fully enjoy the views. But hey, it might be soon enough. That's how quickly things change. But like I said, this is a coffee stop winning, so I'm going to sit here and enjoy these dramatic views as I sip on my Americano. Oh. Now, I said earlier in the video that HIF and Porsche chose this part of the world to set up this demonstrative e-fuels plant because of the wind, the constant strong wind. It's essentially in surplus. But actually, having this much wind comes with its own unique problems because the wind turbine that they use at the HIF plant has to switch off when the wind is over 90 kilometers an hour. It just can't keep up, it becomes dangerous. And down here, at the bottom of the world, or apparently, as the locals say, at the start or the top of the world. Upside down mentality. Yeah, it regularly reaches 120 kilometres an hour. I don't think we're quite there today. Actually, it's just suddenly dropped, but when it picks up, it's just so strong. The force of the wind is so big. But yeah, it may be one of those days where they actually have to switch the turbine off, which is quite a mad thing. Very different to, of course, solar, which has its own issues. When it's a cloudy day like this, you're not getting enough. So yeah, renewable energy always has its issues, but I never thought that you could have too much wind for a wind turbine. Anyway, as you can see, I've ended up with a car to myself for the next leg of the journey. So far on this trip, we've been sharing cars. So got about, I think it's like an hour and a half to the lunch spot on some more gravel roads. Once I'm all set up and we get back out onto the main one singular road around the national park, I will chat to you a little bit more about this Panamera, because I haven't really done that yet, have I? So yeah, let me make sure I'm all set up and we can crack on. Look at this now. My God. Now, there are a few reasons why Porsche decided to bring Panameras on this trip rather than cars that maybe would be a little bit more appropriate for these roads, like a Cayenne or a 911 Dakar. The first reason is actually celebrating this car's name. The Panamera was in part named after the Panamericana Highway, an epic road network that stretches right from the north of the Americas up in Alaska all the way down to the south in Ushuaia, which is actually further south than we are right now. It's actually a road that I've always wanted to do because, my God, what an adventure. Think of the things that you would see, the places that you would go. And actually, of course, they also had the Panamericana rally, the Carrera Panamericana, which was on a paved section of road in Mexico in the mid-1950s. That's where the 911 Carrera got its name. So yeah, Porsche have a lot of sort of history with this part of the world, and the Panamera is supposed to bridge the gap perfectly between sport and comfortness on long-distance journeys. And so whilst not a lot of these roads are paved and it feels a bit brutal to be here in these big luxurious cars, it's still kind of cool. But the second reason, that's a very nice orange Panamera. Oh, that's the turbo. He's in a turbo SE hybrid. What a monster. And actually, perfect segue, because the Panamera has a huge range of powertrains, from big old hybrids to naturally aspirated V8s to V6. You know, there's a lot of different engines have gone in the Panamera ever since it launched back in 2009. And whilst in the UK and in Europe, we're very sort of familiar with hybrids and fairly confident in them, and lots of us buy them. Actually, market share of hybrid powertrains in the Panamera in the UK, it's like 70%. I think in Austria it's 100%. People are like, that's the one I'll have. But globally, only 25% market share for the hybrid powertrains in the Panamera. So around the world, Porsche are aware that of the 350,000 Panameras they've sold, lots of them are just pure combustion engined vehicles. And that's a big motivation for them to develop an e-fuel or a synthetic fuel, so that their historic fleet, their customers out there who have models that they've bought previously, can still use their cars, but hopefully in a green or carbon neutral way. The views are just breathtaking. But yeah, what was I talking about? I don't remember. This is the problem with driving here. It's really hard to string a sentence together because you're just constantly distracted by incredible views. But yes, by decarbonising or carbon neutraling historic vehicles and then pushing forward with the development of new electric vehicles, Porsche feel they're doing their best to help reduce global automotive emissions. So there we go. That's why the Panamera is here. Might not make a lot of other sense, but there is logic behind the potential madness. Speaking of madness, there's a boat on this lake. That looks terrifying. Oh, there are some rapids. Right, I'm going to stop pretending to do some kind of form of journalism and just enjoy being here if this car survives these roads. Now, I can't be certain because my Spanish is awful, but I'm pretty sure that is a sign warning against sideways wind, a genuine big problem that they have here, where the wind can be so strong and coming laterally from the side, it literally picks vehicles up and throws them into lakes. So, yeah, a little bit nervous now. I'm out of the car, I'm out of the car because you're gonna want to see this. I'm running. Look at this now. I don't know which part of the park I'm in, but I'm surrounded by some of the most dramatic mountain peaks I've seen in a long time. They are breaking through the clouds, and it's kind of ominous. Then down below them, got this kind of beautiful glacial lake, which is the most stunning blue colour. Then these luscious green rolling hills. Over that side, more snowy mountain peaks. And then just there, an epic road for which I have a Porsche to drive on. And the sun is coming out! Honestly, these adventures, I am so lucky to get to do stuff like this. I think lots of you will know I am massively passionate about this E/synthetic fuels story. I think it makes so much sense. Over and above visiting this pilot plant of HIF or Porsches, I think there's another, maybe more subliminal, accidental message or reason why Porsche brought us here. Because over the last 36 hours, I haven't seen one electric vehicle. And I'll be honest, I don't really know how you could have an electric vehicle down here. So people are going to have to rely on old existing models, like the ones we've seen knocking around here, old pickup trucks and vans and coaches, etc. But if we could have synthetic fuel on tap, it just makes so much sense. And for those of you EV fans going, well, it's fine, just put charging points in the park. I don't think that's a great idea, because you're really going to be disturbing the ecosystem, this habitat, putting power lines in, and I don't know, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I don't want to be an EV basher, I'm not an EV basher, but on the podcast I talk a lot about the red flags around electric vehicles, and in lots of situations they don't make sense, and this is one of those situations. I think people rely on combustion engine cars too much, and so, like I was just saying a moment ago, Porsche's route and the development of an E or synthetic fuel just makes sense for existing vehicles. I'm going to put the window down because it's so dirty I can't see out, and the view is worth looking at. Well, from those endless, severely bumpy dirt roads, look at this! Things have opened up and we're on a paved section. This is mega! I've even put the car into sport mode. I'm having a blast! This is totally unexpected. Who would have thought Patagonia has some epic driving roads? We've still got to be a little bit careful because there's quite a bit of tourist traffic around, at least tourist coaches, and some big potholes, but this is mega! I'm actually running a little bit late for the lunch spot, so I'm quite grateful that things have got a bit quicker, because the journalists who are hoping to use this car after lunch won't be too angry with me. I'm having a blast! Well, it's after lunch, and you find me in a Panamera Turbo S Sport Turismo. Okay, not the Big Daddy, not the Turbo SE hybrid, but this has a honking great, powerful V8 engine in it, and it's the best. I think it's the best body shape. Oh, look, like little llama things. They're not actually llamas, but I've forgotten what their real name is. Hola, buenos dias. Buenos dias. Boy, am I glad I ended up in this car for this leg of the journey. I mean, the ever-changing landscape of Patagonia. I now feel like I'm somewhere in America. I've got these huge long straights and these flowing corners, good tarmac. I'm really enjoying this car. I'm really enjoying myself in general. Now, I'm fully aware that some of you, maybe new viewers to the channel, or existing ones, may feel like I haven't spoken enough about the synthetic fuel that we've been using in these cars during this adventure. I've been banging on about, Patagonia, the scenery, the wildlife, and these Panameras. And maybe you're at home frustrated, shouting at your screen going, tell us what the synthetic fuel's like! Well, I haven't been talking about it because, well, there's not a lot to say. This is the whole point with a synthetic fuel, is it should behave exactly like normal pump gas, the stuff that you put in your car at any old petrol station. The characteristics, most of the properties are identical. It's just carbon neutral. So there's no proof that it adversely or really affects performance in any way. It doesn't affect MPG apparently, even though when I put it in my 360, I thought it did slightly better fuel economy. And because so many of these synthetic fuel companies use motorsport as a test bed, case in point here, Porsche and the Carrera Super Cup, they're endlessly building and taking apart engines that have used synthetic fuels. So they would know if there was like bore scoring or something odd going on. But no, just it's identical, there's nothing to say. So if you're going like, oh, I want to know what it feels like, it feels the same. And this is the huge plus point. There's nothing to change. You haven't got to change your car, whether it's a 1920s Aston Martin, 1950s 356 Porsche, or a fairly new Panamera Turbo S. You can just start using it tomorrow. I haven't got to think these things through. It's brilliant, but simple. Anyway, there you go, look at that. Big, long road. Let's bring the speed right down, drop the gears, should we do a proper launch? Let's do it. There's no one here. I mean, I'm dog alone. Let's do a proper launch. Heck, we're in a Turbo S. Right, hold. Oh my God! So what did I learn from this trip? Well, it's really just validated my belief that synthetic fuels have to be part of the conversation for the future of mobility. There are 1.4 billion cars in this world, most of which use a combustion engine. While sales of electric cars are increasing in some countries, many parts of the world, like Patagonia, still heavily rely on petrol and diesel-powered cars. Now, Porsche say developing e-fuels is about neutralising the emissions of their existing fleet. It doesn't change their push towards electric in the future. But for me, that's really the key. Whilst synthetic fuel might mean that some manufacturers keep producing new combustion engines well past 2035, it would ensure that combustion engines can exist in general well into the future. Because whilst right now we're talking about a ban on the sale of new combustion engine cars from 2030 or 2035, don't think they're going to stop there. They will quickly move on to make running any car with any kind of combustion engine more expensive, more difficult as time moves on. But with synthetic fuel, they don't have to. Billions of cars won't need to be scrapped, millions of families won't have to part with huge sums of money to swap to an electric vehicle, we won't have to wait for complex infrastructure to be rolled out around the world to ensure that electric mobility is viable for the masses, and most importantly, for us petrol heads, we'll be able to continue to enjoy pieces of history, like the original Ford GT, the Carrera GT, the Ferrari Enzo, and that humble family Volkswagen Golf that's got 300,000 miles on the clock but just keeps going. So we need more manufacturers to be like Porsche, to invest more money in this area and make more noise about it. And we need them to start doing it right now.